there is a small message that I have for you this morning from the people of Kamkunji. I was in Kitui village on Bochia in the morning. We had a fire incident there on Wednesday, and we lost about 7 people. And over 100 people were affected as well. And Governor, when I was there, there are a few things that I was requested to bring to your attention. First of all is the state of Muratina Road, from the junction of General Warwinge at the Pumwani Maternity Hospital all the way down to Lamu Road. What are you hearing from the people at Kura about the state of that road? Because it is in terrible shape, and I've seen it myself. Just a few weeks ago, I think a few days ago, one of the local media stations actually ran an expose or a story on the state of roads in Nairobi. And whereas we might understand the situation in Kilimani and parts of Alingam because of the heavy construction equipment that is always on those roads, maybe you could update the people of Nairobi on the state of that road called Muratina Road. Secondly, Governor, I'm sure your team was there because I was told the firefighting team on this specific occasion did not do very badly. The words that were used by the people of Kamkunji was that they didn't do too badly. So please don't substitute the words with your own. But Governor, when I was there today this morning, raw sewage is flowing into people's homes. I don't know if it has been brought to the attention of your teams and what they are doing about it. Lastly, Governor, we had a conversation with you here after the heavy rains. I think that was the last time you appeared here. You remember the case of the bridges that were swept away. And I think, if I'm not wrong, and you can jog my memory, you had told us that you're going to prioritize reconstruction of those bridges. The people there told me that that has not been done. So maybe you can address those issues just for the comfort of the people of Nairobi, and then we can delve into the main issues today. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Okay, since that's a topical matter, perhaps I can allow a maximum of 5 minutes for the Governor to respond or for any supplementary questions. Governor?
Chair, while that may not be the subject matter today on this audit, I think it's a good opportunity to respond. Indeed, we've had many cases of fires due to many reasons that we're dealing with, including illegal power connections. In this particular instance, it was 6 people who lost their lives. There were 2 families. There was Kenneth Orambo, a 45-year-old, and his children. There was Yusuf. There was Joanne and Jessica Orambo, who was 2.5 years. We were in contact with the family, Sarah and Jamal, after that incident. The other family was 2 people. There's a mother and a child. The mother is called Sylvia Akumu, and the child is Nelson, 2.5 years. Our team swung into action quite swiftly to solve, of course, issues of access, were a problem because of, the kind of informal settlement that we have there. And our deep condolences to those who lost loved ones. 6 people are 1 person too many to lose. We've given support. Those affected are currently at a hall nearby. We've been able to give food and material support. That is blankets, mattresses, and food stuff. And we're talking to the structure owners. These are tenants, but trying to see how to help them to reconstruct. And even with more training of, fast response, because in as much as the nearest station would take them 8 or so minutes and they were there in less than 15, the fast responders normally are the young people around there, and we have a program of training young people across the city to be able to respond quickly. It is true there's an issue of state of roads, and which is why we really implore upon the Senate. Even in as much as there's white smoke on the division of revenue, which we are not happy with as governors, there's the pending issue of RMLF. A lot of these roads, whose state has been raised, including Muratina, and Jogoro was on the news, and you see vehicles jumping off those potholes. People are not able to distinguish whose responsibility it is, because those are national roads under Kura. you find that when RMLF, which is a tax levied on everyone who uses fuel, the money is disbursed only to the national government, then counties are not able to maintain roads. Now, when you give this to members of parliament, for instance, which they do through KERA, we have Kenya rural roads doing roads in Nairobi, and this is an urban city. The prioritization of those roads is political. And so there is no MP who will put money on Jogo Road because there are no votes there. They'll go put money, the MP for Westlands, for instance, will do Kangemi, he will not do Westlands Shopping Center. The MP for the Great North will not touch Yaya Center or Agnes Kodek, they'll go to Kawangware. And that is why, as governors, we are saying that a tax raised nationally by every taxpayer using county or national roads should therefore also be distributed by the ratio of county roads versus national roads. And the county roads actually more than national roads. Some of the roads we've been able to do, including in Isili, Waudo Street and a number of the avenues, was because we were able to get stuck RMLF from 2019 when we got into office, around 900 million or so that had been stuck during the previous regime because they diverted funds. I was able to get them and do many of the roads. If you go now to every ward in Nairobi, there are road projects going on through what we call our ward-based projects. We focus projects in every ward. The highest allocation previously, Senator, was 200 million in 2017-18. When I got into office the first year, we did 735 million worth of those roads. And this last year, we've done 950 million worth of those roads. So those are roads which are internal. Fortunately for us, Section 6 of the Urban Areas and Cities Act talks about infrastructure in the capital city and the need for a special arrangement between the national and county government. And we've been able to sit down with the national government and said, look, we need to prioritize certain roads, some which are under your purview, and extra support for those under our purview due to lack of the RMLF. And we've agreed on an initial 4 to 5 billion shillings that begins this December and in January. So that we can sort out those. There's the Chanias and the ones up market, but also down there. Remember there was around 2.1 billion worth of NMS projects that was stalled. And those went to the executive office of the president. I'm happy that we've gotten a commitment, but we want to push it because no county should beg for what is rightfully theirs. The number of road users we have in the city who are paying RMLF, if you have to georeference it, possibly 30 to 40% of the entire road maintenance levy fund is on Nairobi road users, yet the county is not getting that money. So Senator Sifuna, I'll look at the specific one, but I know that is part of the roads on our list that we're pushing to be done. As recently as actually this Monday, I sat with the CS Davis Chichir, Kura Director General, Kenha as well. We've seen the mess here on Uhuru Highway and under the expressway. They did the road up there. Below it looks like a war zone. A contract was awarded. The people of Kangemi want the bridge to cross over to the other side of Loresho and Kibagare. There's a 3 billion pending bill there. So if you look at what and I would be very happy to furnish the Senate with the details, coming to around 11.2 or so billion shillings to just sort out the capital must look like the capital. We lost many trees during construction of the expressway. We used to have beautiful boulevards of Jacaranda. We want to restore those and also walkways, non-motorized transport using high-performance concrete. So I'll be very happy to come to this committee or to the roads committee to express that the Senate must fight for counties. Counties don't want, that money is ring-fenced for infrastructure. If you allocate it politically through members of parliament, you will never sort out linkages between constituencies, which is the matter that we're dealing with. So finally, we're checking. We have the contact persons in Majengo. I spoke to the member of parliament, Honorable Yusuf, the area MCA, Honorable Irungu. We are working closely with them with our disaster team, because also what we do is post-disaster psychosocial support to the affected families. So I think.
Thank you, Governor.
So the question of the sewage and the bridges.
Yeah. The bridges we constructed, the ones which had been targeted during that last flooding, were 17 bridges. Mainly, the worst affected place was along Madare River, Huruma Hospital Ward, coming up to Mabatini, Ngumba Bridge. We did a bridge in Odhiru Rudhimitu. We did bridges in Kibra constituency, and so I can furnish the committee that list. At that point, there was no bridge targeted at Kitui village. But closer by there's a Kiambu Bridge, the two bridges. One crosses over to KCC, Another one crosses over to the other side of Mukuru. We raised the level of those bridges. They're higher because of the rising water level. Now what we're doing as well is, because the riparian was secured after that, unfortunately there was a silver lining, that 30 meters on both sides got secured. We are really pushing, of course, for the settlement and compensation, and prioritization of those affected, especially in Mathare and Ruaraka constituency, but of course Mukuru as well, in the affordable housing. But the Greenway project that we're doing now with the Rivers Commission includes us as Nairobi County doing 54 kilometers of trunk sewers along the river, starting in the Nairobi River, which is 27 kilometers. The kind of sewer, because a lot of what goes in is from connections of people who have nowhere else to connect their sewer. 1.8 by 2 meter diameter will last us another 40 years for the city. And so we're happy that we have that opportunity now to sort out a long problem. Remember, the challenge in the city comes from a colonial history. Nairobi is known as the land of rivers. Most cities, the frontage is the rivers. We have Nairobi River, Ngong and Mathare. But what happened?
Point of order, Chair. Governor, because we don't want to take up the entire meeting with our issues that are outside the mandate of this committee, perhaps just address the flowing sewage today. At that particular site, your people have been there at Kitui village. It is flowing into people's houses. I've seen it myself. You just direct your officers to be able to deal with that issue by today.
Yeah, I'll confirm that because I've not gotten that specific report. But what I was generally saying is that there's now been an injection of funds to Nairobi Water and Sewerage Company to sort out many of those problems of all infrastructure. If you look at, as I conclude, Nairobi, CBD, and Ngara, Pangani, Isili, the sewerage infrastructure for solid waste was set up pre-independence. It's very old infrastructure for a smaller population. We now have AFD Bank support. We have French Development, that's French Development Agency and Africa Development Bank, sorting out the lateral connections to that trunk that I'm mentioning. So because there's also, a river passing there, they will be part of that program. I'll be happy again to furnish more details.
Okay, I think that's a matter that can be followed up maybe in a different forum.
Just a comment, Governor, I fear that I agree on you on the issue of road maintenance levy fund.
What are you fearing?
That is a story for another day. But the point I wanted to make and agree with your senator is on the issue of road maintenance levy fund. I think it is the right of the counties, and I'm reliably informed that you have a matter in court. That 10 billion should be given to counties. My opinion, and I think Kera and Kura should be declared unconstitutional. In fact, the national government should only retain the Kenya Nationals Highway Authority under their own purview, because when I watched the story that was run by one of the local media stations, I was worried because I know a number of roads are not under the purview of the county government. Number two, to inject, the way you are using the word inject, is that you need to tell us, I think the senator maybe is a member of Roads Committee, the relationship that you are doing with Kenya Urban Support Program under World Bank. That is something I think you are working closely with. You can liaise with your senator. And maybe what are you doing with Kenya Urban Roads Authority and I don't want to say Kera, because some of us who are villagers are used to Kera. I don't know. Our relationship you are working with to ensure that the issue of Kura and Kera, you are working closely, because I agree when I saw the story of Jogoo Road, which I used a number of times, I thought that's the purview of national government. So have you in any way engaged, just maybe under 30 seconds, have you in any way through the chair, have you in any way engaged with national government? Because I'm happy nowadays you talk to Raila, you talk to Ruto, so you are on a broad base, so it is easy for your manenos to go through.
Not nowadays, always.
Always?
Can I respond?
Okay.
Not on the last part.
No, not on the last part.
On the substantive.
But yeah, you have to believe also this city, you need political goodwill to survive. And Sakaja is doing very well. Because I saw the last time he was in Opada farm taking care of some animals. Anyway, that's a cool thing.
Let's leave camels and farms out of this so that the governor can respond on the substantive issue on the roads. Even though I doubt whether there was much in terms of response required, because the senator is just encouraging you and the position of the Senate as far as RMLF is concerned.
Maybe before he goes, because I was a member of that mediation committee. Governor, your colleagues, when they appear here, we have asked them about the relationship between themselves and their members of the National Assembly. Because the people of Nairobi, for instance, the people of Kamkunji, they really don't care which agency does what road. They don't care whether it is a member of the National Assembly, MCA, or governor who's doing the road. They just want the road done. So in the mediation itself, the members of the National Assembly had proposed a reduction of your or the county's shareable revenue to below even what you were to receive last year. Right. They had proposed a slash to 380 billion. But for us as a Senate, and this is why, Governor, you need to speak to your colleagues, especially in the COG, we feel like the governors don't appreciate the work that the Senate does. If you hear some of the pronouncements from your colleagues directed at members of this House, it is as if they don't understand the work that we do. We have fought, and on principle, we have agreed with the National Assembly on three things. That number one, counties will never receive less than what they received in the previous or preceding financial year. Number two, that if there is a shortfall in revenue, the person or the entity to bear that is the national government. And thirdly, that Governor, year on year, Senate has always to demonstrate, the national government has always to demonstrate increase in the resources that the county governments receive. So whereas you're telling us that the COG is not happy with the 387, I would be more happy, Governor, if you were saying that we saved you 7 billion Kenya shillings that was going to be removed from the allocation to county governments. Because as you know, you are a Senate. A mediation process does not get you entirely what you wanted. And I was getting a bit concerned because your colleagues were threatening to shut down counties, including some from my own political party, and I didn't understand why they were crying like that instead of allowing the Senate to conclude that process. So in terms of fighting for counties, yes, I think this Senate has done very well, but we don't see reciprocity in terms of just basic respect from members, not you personally, but from some of the members of the COG. And I know you had ambitions to be chair of COG. I don't know how the campaigns went, but you need to be able to pass a message to your colleagues that some of the pronouncements really demoralize the Senate in our work.
You see, if we debate this matter, we can take the entire day because they are pertinent. And there are issues that are of great concern, but we've got a brief before us today that we must do justice to. But just linking the brief before us to this conversation so that we go back to the numbers, is that these reports that we've directed the Auditor General to do a deep analysis on is part of the financing mechanisms for Nairobi City County. For the financial year ended 30th June 2023, you had reported a collection of 10.5 billion Kenya shillings as per the report of the receiver of revenue. Now 10.5 billion means that on average you're collecting 29 million per day. 29 million per day. Every single hour you're collecting 1.2 million. So the 1 hour that we have spent here, Nairobi has collected about 1.2 million and about 20,000 per minute. Of course, there are many Kenyans who believe that these numbers with automation, with greater efficiencies, that Nairobi should collect much more than the 10.5 billion that is here. You are complaining about the division of revenue, which we all share, that the 387 billion is not sufficient to support even the basic operations of counties when you think about the non-discretionary expenditure that has been loaded to county governments. I think it would not be fair for us to proceed without querying your plans and strategies for financing of Nairobi City County. Because this 10.5 billion plus your share of the 387 billion is not going to transform Nairobi into the modern metropolis that it ought to be. So outside whatever you're collecting from Gikomba, and outside whatever the national government gives county governments thinking that it's a favor, and yet it's a constitutional right, what are the other options for financing of Nairobi City County that you have in place right now? I know you've told us about green bonds, but those are futuristic. What is it that you're doing over and above the 10.5 billion and whatever it is the Senate is going to allocate to Nairobi?
Thank you, Chair. Can you kindly allow me just 1 minute to, because I'm very passionate about devolution. We've been together in this house, and even previously when I was in the lower house, we were together in a committee which I chaired, and I must say I am continuously astounded by your growing wisdom, you know, and how you manage these issues. You're doing very well, which is true, because for the first 5 years I chaired, you know, and I think you learned, and you're very good. It's a compliment.
It is a general rule that when a governor praises a senator, then there's a problem.
No.
So I might want to ask you to withdraw your flowery comment.
I will withdraw the praise. Chair, on DORA, if you look at 217B and PFM, I think 191.3A, a very dangerous precedent has been set, where Kara is being used to amend DORA. If you look at that, you know, the memorandum that came, it is challengeable. And 219 says specifically that when there's a shortfall, it must be borne by the national government. So we are grateful, and I will talk to my colleagues, because it is not right to disparage the Senate in its efforts. I believe the Senate has done a great job in pushing for us. Of course, in this mediation, maybe the approach could have been different, but that is crying over spilt milk. Because if the 30 days lapsed without an agreement, then we would go back to 400 billion. It was not for us to have an agreement. It was for those pushing an amendment to have an agreement. We would have stuck at 400. But we understand the macroeconomic issues, and I believe we'll grow. The point you've raised is very important, as I now move to what you've asked. Devolution, and I will also table to you a publication I did in 2010 with the International Commission of Jurists on the fiscal and operational framework for fiscal decentralization. You know, the operational and legal framework for it. There are 4 principles, but we only focus on one as counties, and sometimes even as Senate. The first one, of course, devolution is based on the principle of subsidiarity. Yeah, that a service is best offered at the lowest level compatible with the benefit of that service. The first thing you look at is what are the constitutional responsibilities of each level. So that is the expenditure responsibility. That is in the 4th schedule, and that is costing of functions. The second principle you then look at is then what are the revenue raising measures. That is chapter 12 of the Constitution. That we cannot deal with you know, income tax and such. Last year we did the historical high of 12.8 billion. A county should be able to discount the present value of that amount for the next 10-15 years to get close to 400 billion. If you want to do serious infrastructural interventions in this city to make it the world-class capital, it should be. Because we will talk about flooding, about drainage, about BRT, about mass transit. Unless you get 200, 300 billion at a go, then the governor is a glorified cashier, paying salaries, you know, and collecting garbage, which is not even efficient, you know, if you do it in that way. And so I would want to invite the Senate, and even through our committee in COG of Budget and Finance, to actually have a critical analysis of subnational financing, because it would not work the way we're going. We have put in place certain measures, which I'm very happy to report on today. And these measures have led us to raising the highest amount of revenue in the history of devolution, at 12.8, which is the current report that is being looked at. We've used the same even for our water company. Senator Osoti's committee will be looking into that, because we made them go beyond the ceiling they had of 8 billion, and they raised 10.5 billion Nairobi Water, which is more than many counties raise. Actually, possibly 10 to 13 counties combined, you know, in terms of connections, reducing non-revenue water. How we've done that, if you allow me to go into the specific examples.
Governor, I appreciate that, and actually my query was over and above the 12 billions, the 10.5 billions.
Yeah.
From Onkara, you expect to get how much?
Around 20
billion.
Around 20. Now that it's been reviewed.
We are all in consensus that you cannot develop and run Nairobi with 20 billion plus 12 billion plus another 10 billion. It is insufficient. And of course,
which are the 10 billion?
The one from Nairobi Water?
Oh no, yeah, that is for...
Yes, and that's ring-fenced for... In fact, even that 10 billion
is not enough.
Is not sufficient to provide sanitation and water services to Nairobi.
Yeah.
And really, the question is, what is the thinking? Because the Urban Areas and Cities Act requires that there should be specific financing for cities. But it does not come through DORA. You have to go and negotiate a meal before Treasury. I don't know who you've been talking to acquire the additional 4 billion. Why can't we institutionalize that conversation so that it is not a begging mission by the governor of Nairobi to the national government? How can we help you to institutionalize it and to ring-fence it? Because the money you have is not enough.
Chair and Governor, you can take this together. There's something Senator Cherargei said about your friendships. At least I know that one of your friends, my party leader, has taken a position on division of revenue.
Yes.
All those things you are saying, when you discuss with your party leader, what does he say about your views? Because at least mine is clear on how much money should come to the counties. I just want to know, what does he say about some of the things you are saying? And number two, we have had a conversation in this city about the money that is owed by national government institutions through unpaid rates to the Nairobi City County. Again, I want to understand, when you have those conversations with your party leader, who's the head of state, what is his position on these things? Or should we wait until your other friend becomes the head of state so that these things can be done?
I thought we were keen on institutionalizing the conversations rather than basing it on friendship.
It's about the head of the African states. On a more substantive issue, Governor has alluded to that in the history of devolution, I don't know whether within Nairobi City County or across the country, he has collected at 12.8 billion.
Yes.
In comparison to what? Because, you know, when he says what is the target and the revenue potential, I don't know whether Dahir, you can tell us what is the revenue potential, or Salatu is here, the revenue potential of Nairobi City County, because what governor is collecting of 12.8 billion is that the auditor does not have the view of the system in itself. And maybe governor can be gracious as he is today and smiley today, is that he should tell us how much under Nairobi Metropolitan Services, and he cannot run away from this because he was the area senator, and then how much were they collecting comparison to 12.8 billion that we are talking about? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, and I think, Governor, it's also fair when you congratulate yourself on 12.8